Okay, so when you think of ancient Egypt, what pops into your head? Towering pyramids, right? Golden pharaohs, the Nile, all that stuff. And yeah, absolutely. But what if I told you that one of its most amazing and almost totally forgotten legacies was wine? It's a story that's been 5,000 years in the making, so let's dive in.
To really get why wine was such a big deal, let's start with a simple question. We all know the pharaohs packed for eternity, but what exactly was on that list for the great beyond?
Yep, you guessed it. Alongside all their immense treasures and even their attendants, they packed tons of wine. And this wasn't just, a party favor, it was considered an absolutely essential provision for their eternal journey. It kind of flips the script on how you think about ancient Egypt, doesn't it?
So, just how far back does this tradition go? We're not talking a few hundred years. Oh no, we're talking about a rich history of winemaking that stretches back over 5 millennia.
And the timeline here is just wow. The first archaeological evidence we have for winemaking actually predates many of the most famous pyramids. By the time of the Old Kingdom, wine was already a fixture for royalty and in religious offerings. And then you get to the New Kingdom. We're talking the age of King Tut and Ramses the Great, and winemaking was this super sophisticated art form, with vineyards all along the Nile and these amazing detailed scenes of the whole process painted right onto tomb walls.
So the main takeaway here is that wine was completely woven into the fabric of their world. It was a sacred offering for the gods, it was a staple at every party, it was a valuable export that they shipped all over the Mediterranean, and, as we've seen, it was a non-negotiable for the afterlife. Honestly, it was just as vital as the Nile itself.
And if you want to see just how deep this connection ran, look no further than their gods. Get this, their god of the afterlife, Osiris, was also the god of wine. His whole story of death and resurrection was seen in the yearly cycle of the grapevine. It gets cut back in the winter, only to be reborn with the harvest. For the ancient Egyptians, wine literally symbolized eternal life.
But hold on. If wine was so central to their culture for thousands of years, what happened? How could a legacy that huge just disappear?
Well, the turning point came in the 7th century. New rulers and a new religion brought the prohibition of alcohol. And just like that, Egypt's ancient wine industry went silent. For more than 1,000 years, this huge piece of their heritage just lay dormant.
But that is not the end of the story. Not even close. In the last few decades, there's been this quiet comeback. A whole new generation of winemakers is rediscovering this ancient legacy, but they're facing a set of challenges that are, well, uniquely modern.
And the contrast between then and now is pretty stark. The ancients had to figure out how to manage the Nile's massive annual floods. Today's winemakers, they have the exact opposite problem: extreme water scarcity. The ancients battled local pests. Modern winemakers are fighting against this intense desert heat that can literally cook the grapes on the vine. And while the Egyptians were pioneers back then, today's producers have to fight for attention in a totally crowded global market. The challenges have changed, but that need for pure ingenuity is still the same.
So how are they pulling off this comeback? Well, it's really a 4-part strategy. First, they're using modern tech, like precision drip irrigation, to solve that water problem. Second, foreign investment is bringing in much-needed cash and expertise. Third, they're being incredibly smart about picking grape varieties that can actually handle the heat. And finally, a growing tourism industry is creating a built-in audience of people who are dying to taste a piece of history.
So let's take a closer look at those grapes, because the choices they're making are absolutely key to this whole revival. It's this fascinating mix of local tradition and global know-how. Their approach is actually a brilliant 2-pronged attack. On one hand, they're growing native grapes, like Baladi and Bani Salem, which are naturally built for these harsh conditions. But on the other hand, they're planting internationally famous grapes, like Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay. This lets them make wines that are uniquely Egyptian, but that also appeal to people all over the world. That Syrah grape, in particular, is a real rising star. It seems to love the desert heat, and it's producing these amazing, bold, peppery reds.
So with all this progress, what does the future hold? This revival isn't just about looking back at the past. It's about building a sustainable, world-class wine industry for tomorrow.
The path forward is pretty clear. It all starts with sustainability. Mastering water use isn't optional, it's everything. From there, they're developing enotourism, that's wine tourism. linking their incredible historical sites with their vineyards. The crucial step, of course, is creating a unique identity with wines that really taste of Egypt's unique terroir, that special sense of place. And finally, the big goal is to take that unique product and share it with the world.
And that really is the perfect summary. It's all about combining that millennial tradition with modern innovation. By balancing the past and the future, Egyptian wine is poised for a seriously remarkable comeback. Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In a land that's defined by its ancient wonders, could it be that this reborn 5,000-year-old tradition of winemaking is about to become its most dynamic and exciting new story? Kinda seems like the pharaohs knew what they were doing all along.